Recording is in progress. All right. So quickly, right? You have, I think most of you have linked in your Rhino model, your CAD model from Rhino into Revit. All right. What I've done is I've gone through and tried to figure out how to how do you say, format those lines so that when you're cutting through that model, that Rhino model part, you get the right line weights and poche, right? It sort of looks like it pops, like it should. And so let me just show you what that means. But one of the things that I encountered is that the way we just reference the model in, so you could keep going back into Rhino and moving things, and when you open it back up in Revit, it's changed. At this point in time, I'm going to tell you if you want to cut some plans and sections and get some good line weights, what you'll do is you'll go ahead and delete the referenced model, and then we'll insert it into the Revit model in different ways that allows us to see all the line weights and poche options. Okay, so um, just as a reminder, this is just Revit, and just if you want to just watch. But I'm going to go ahead and do what we did before, which was insert link CAD file. I'm just doing a demonstration, Jason, and recording it.
I just sat in this chair and I didn't look over at the clock. I just didn't, and then I realized you're late. Okay, so you're doing an import?
Yeah. So just like we did before, I'm doing this import and I'm in layer, let's say floor plan level 1. I'm just going to go to my 3D views, cover sheet views. Let me just make a new 3D view here. Let me just, yeah, so let me just start a new 3D view. Okay, here we go. And here's what I just imported, just like we did before at the very beginning, right? So this is like the linked CAD. I'll just move it into my box here. You guys already took care of this by simply making sure. Okay, yeah. Oh, it's pinned. Okay, gosh. Of course it is. All right, move. I'll just move this into place since I wasn't as careful as you guys in trying to line things up to the 0, 0 point, right? But anyway, what you can see is that by default, sometimes this thing isn't even being cut, right? So I'm going to say, go to the properties, select this, and make sure that that's being cut in all the plans.
Later.
And then I'm just doing the demonstration. Let me get through it. When I go to level 1, now you can see that all I see are really like the parts that are being cut and what's beyond an elevation, right? But let me just again demonstrate the problem, and I'll show you what the solution is here. Let's say I make some architectural walls here, as one does, right? Um, and I look at the walls. The walls are obviously being cut. They have a certain line weight, right? And the Rhinos model that where it's being cut doesn't have the same line weight. They should all have the same line weight, right? We want those to be, beefier. When you're cutting through things in plan and section, that's how these drawings work, right? So you can see that this is a set of walls or planes with thickness in Rhino, and it doesn't have the same line weight as these do, right? So um, let me show you a couple of things here. You watching? All right. So what I can do is if I want to change this globally in Revit, let's say I want to add the black fill, I can select one of my walls. And since I'm using just the same wall, basic wall, generic 8 inches, I can edit the type. And then in here, when I say edit the type, right, I've selected the wall. Now I can select that wall type. I can change its graphic properties. So here I can say fill pattern, solid. And then what color? I just make sure that that's set to black and I hit apply. Now all the walls, when cut in plan and section, will have that black poche. So let me just double check that. I'll go to my section here. And voila, there we go. I'm cutting through 2 walls. I can see another wall and elevation beyond, right? Okay. But again, the problem persists in the section of seeing like anything in the Rhino model being cut through, right? Like it's being cut, but it's not showing us with line weights and poche what's actually mass being cut through walls, floors, roofs, and whatever. Yeah, right. So that this is the problem that I ran into and was working on scatter brain throughout the day, trying to also help out with any questions you guys had throughout the afternoon and morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that you, at a certain point, you can either make a copy. Here's what I suggest. When you're ready to make some floor plans and sections between now and let's say Tuesday or next Thursday when we present again, when you're at a point where you don't think you're going to make too many more changes to the Rhino model, you go ahead and delete that linked Rhino model. You can just click on it, select it, and delete it. And I'm going to show you a different way to insert that Rhino model into the Revit model that will then we can start to edit things inside. It's graphic properties, okay? All right, so rather than going to insert and then link CAD, I'm going to architecture and I'm going to say components. I'm going to say model in place. Okay. So here it is, architecture tab, components, that little drop down, expand out, model in place. And when I click that, it's going to say, okay, what kind of family are you making here? Are you modeling in place? And I'm just going to go down to where it says generic model. I'm not making anything that has to do with fire protection or entourage or anything like that. Generic models and hit OK. And it's going to say, well, let's name this thing that you're going to model. And I'm going to say, okay, let's just leave it as generic model one. And I hit OK. I'm just going to leave the defaults. Then I can go to, first of all, it gives me these modeling tools as if I would actually try to model this again in Revit, which is a pain in the ass. I'll be honest with you. So in this case, insert, and then I'm going to say import CAD. Okay. And it's very similar. I'm just going to go ahead and, let's see, I think it's this one. Select this. Okay. It's right over here. And when I'm done, I'm going to make sure I hit that green check mark. And now I've made a generic model component with my Rhino component. All right. Same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly move this so that it's in my box here. And I can start to draw or cut some floor plans through it. Okay. So if I go to level one, right, you can still see I have the same problem, right? I can select it and, but at the same time, like, look, right, like the things that I'm cutting through don't have that line weight, doesn't have the poche. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to go to the View tab and say Visibility Graphics. Okay. Now that lets me adjust again some of the graphics and how these are displayed in Revit sort of globally, right? And so it has now a set of families. I can do this family by family. So let's say I just want to change all the air ducts and how they display at once. I can come here and find the air ducts or the conduits or the curtain panels, etc. Right? And I'm going to go down to generic models, and you can see that here how they look, but then also how they look when they're cut in section and plan. I can override and change those settings. So here I can say override, and I can say line color, I always want to be black. And line weight, let's beef it up to like, let's say 6. And I'll go ahead and hit apply. And you can see now those solids that I'm cutting through are now pretty obvious. And again, with the pattern, I can also override that and say pattern, let's do a solid fill in this case, color black, right? Hit OK, hit apply, and voila, right? Or, again, I could always, you notice in both when I change the wall family and then when I change the generic model family values, you have other options here. It doesn't have to be solid fill. You can do a series of hatches or whatever you'd like to do, whatever you think looks best graphically. But now we can see that level by level. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that you have to do this for each plan and for each section, which is annoying because what you're doing is you're basically overriding this stuff. Let's see. Let me see if I can select this and say edit type. Yeah, it doesn't give me the same with the generic stuff. It doesn't give me the same options to sort of do the graphics. So I'll just go to the next plan and do the exact same thing. I'll go down to generic. It's right here and just override. And if you have the right parameters, you jot them down to remember them. Um, then you can sort of make things look really nice and consistent. Oftentimes, firms, if they go through this process of having certain line weights set up for certain families, they might actually have sort of standards, and you can basically um, import their object styles, right? And they might have an object styles file so that it just sort of goes and adheres to the office standards to sort of save you time and effort and make sure everything sort of looks great. I don't have that. Darn it. Maybe that's something I can do in my free time. Hardy har har. But now, level two, again, we can see that we have a set of things that we're cutting through in Rhino. All right. Okay. Um, when it comes to the sections, let's try it out. I was having mixed success with the sections for whatever reason. So I'm in the section drawing, let's say graphic display options. Yeah, let's say visibility graphics, sorry. Again, in the view tab. And I go down to generic models, and let's override this. First, let's go and turn this to all the lines to black that are being cut through with a beefier line weight of 6. There you go. That's looking pretty good, huh? Right? But here's the thing, right? Foreground visible. Let's see. Let's override it and say solid fill, black. And let's try this as well. Solid fill, black. There's like a foreground and background. I don't know what that means necessarily, but and let's hit apply and see if that works. It wasn't working for me yesterday. Oh, now it's working for me now. Okay. Maybe I'm just awful yesterday. Yesterday was a bad day. I don't know. Whatever. All right. So that's how I'm going through this systematically, right? Like as I start to say, okay, I have 2 sections. I have 6 floor plans, including my site plan or my ground floor plan, but I'm going to start drawing some things out, part of the site, the sidewalks, or some of the right of way, the neighbors, et cetera. Then I can start to think about how to format these in Revit. Okay. Now this is great if I want to bring out one of these like maybe into Illustrator, compose it on one of my slides or something, right? So I can either bring this out as a raster file, like a JPEG or PNG, or I can export it as a PDF. And then when I bring it into Illustrator, I actually can select all these lines and change the line weights again if I wanted to, or continue drawing. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I can export, like I say, create PDF files. Okay. And it's going to ask me, okay, export range. Do you just want to do the current window? My current window, this section? Yes, that's exactly what I want to do. And I'm going to say combine selected views and sheets into a single. I'm just going to maybe leave this um, as the default. Export and background. Okay, I'm just going to say export and let's see what it pops out. Okay. Background, transferring data for PDF export. This may take a moment or maybe even more than a moment. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do once we go through this is I'll show you how you can, if you wanted to then cut your plans and sections in Rhino rather than Revit, how you bring all of this from Revit quickly into Rhino, and then you could use the section or the what do you call it? The clipping planes, turn on the shading with the shadows and the render mode. If so, I don't necessarily care. I think each of you have your own preferences there. But if you wanted to try that, then I'll show you how to bring this back into Rhino. So where did this go? Complete. Well, where did you put it? You didn't even ask me where to put it. It put it in documents, apparently. So let's see. Oh, come on. All right. It wants to open it up in the web browser, but it's a PDF. You can see here that, let me just close this out. And is it in this document? Yeah, it sure is. Okay, let me open up on the Mac and just Acrobat. And at the same time, I'll just open up Illustrator. So if there's stray things in there that you didn't want, you could always open up the PDF in Illustrator. It should be an editable PDF. So let me just open this up in Illustrator. And open, I'll just go to the documents, open up project01.pdf. All right, all right, all right. Let's see. What do we have here? It's way over here off my artboard for some stupid reason. But you can see that these things are selectable and editable. So let's say I like this, have this line, but I don't necessarily want this elevation marker tag. I can always go ahead and start selecting things or changing the line weights around, or whatever, right? Or you know, turning black lines to gray if I want to sort of make things pop better or recede, etc. Right? So this is an example of just taking any plan or section or elevation in Revit. You can just export it you can just go up to File, Export, PDF. It'll give you PDFs of that, what's in that window. You can open those up in Illustrator, start placing them in your artboard, PDF that becomes your presentation if you'd like, right? Or part of your presentation. Right. So that's a common workflow. Illustrator's made to use to work with these vector graphics. Vectors meaning all the lines, curves, arcs are still editable CAD geometry that you can extend. When I zoom in and out, because they're vector, right? These aren't just like a box with, pixels, and some are articulated as white and some articulated as black, like a raster graphic in Photoshop. In Illustrator, there's an algebraic function, right? Sort of defining this line. If I zoom in and out, it just redraws it, right? So it doesn't get pixelated, right? So if you want to keep that sort of maintain that line work, that's the workflow, right? Going as a PDF from Revit to Illustrator, right? Okay, so that's that workflow. And again, I'm recording this, so if you want to refer back to this later, I'll have this posted, right? I'll leave Illustrator open for now because we can also I can show the workflow from Rhino to Illustrator. But first things first, we need to take this from Revit into Rhino. Let's say you wanted to actually bring this into Rhino and do some of that stuff, right? So I'm just going to go to the 3D view. That seems the easiest way to sort of see everything all at once. All right. And I'm going to go File, and I'm going to say Export again. And I believe I'm going to go up here to CAD formats. You can see all the different sort of things it can export out, right? So DWG, DXF, those are common AutoCAD, Autodesk formats. DXFs are really good for lines and curves and flat drawings. DGN, I think, is MicroStation. OBJ is a mesh file that is fairly universal, but was started by Alias Wavefront with Studio Tools and Maya. Now it doesn't exist, and Autodesk bought it. SCSI, SATs, STL, which stands for stereolithography. That's a common format for 3D printing. And then a step file, which you can use for other kinds of CNC manufacturing, like if you're getting into CAM, uh, uh, um, a CAM software to then generate, let's say, toolpaths for a router or something like that. You could use a step file. So I'm going to pick DWG. And the one of the things I'm going to maybe really emphasize here is that I'm not just going to use the standard settings, but you say select export setup. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to click dot, dot, dot and change the settings, the export settings. And the only thing I'm going to change here, I think, is I'm going to go to the solids tab. And instead of saying export solids as polymeshes, which are nasty triangulated things, I'm going to say just use them SCSI solids. Okay. And I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to say next. And it's going to ask me, where do you want to save this and what do you want to name it? Right. I think we sort of understand this. So let's see. I'm going to say Revit to Rhino export 24 July. All right. And I'm just going to hit OK. Right. Now let's try this out. I'll just minimize Revit, which I feel confident now in my Apple Silicon chip to like have all these things running at the same time. And I'll just create a new file. I'll say large objects in inches or feet or whatever. Because I'm just sort of cutting these things and getting visuals, I don't necessarily care about the scale as long as everything's the same. Um, so let's see. Mainly because we'll be having these on slides and we'll just be projecting them anyway. And then you'll sort of resize them for your portfolio pages as well. So the scale, it's not like you're gonna have 18 scale, you're gonna have like 24 by 36 drawing sheets that you're showing us. But let's see. Okay. So now I can just simply say, let's just open up Revit to Rhino export. Yeah, there we go. Let's just open up a DWG in Rhino. And it's going to ask you, were the model units in millimeters? I'm going to say, no, they were in inches. Layouts also in inches, sure. And I just hit OK otherwise. All right, and there we go. Let's go. That's what it looks like shaded. You can see the stuff I made in Revit. They're all sort of just nice closed joined poly surfaces. That includes glazing, that includes mullions, that includes walls, floors, roofs. You can go back and forth, right? If you wanted to do that here in Rhino, you could. Yeah, they're editable. But I can also, but here's the thing, right? Like I'm not sure at this point what I'd want to do. But if I wanted to, like, let's say make plans, I could go to, let's say, to top. I could actually turn these things on and then you add clipping planes and actually have shadows, soft shadows, crisp shadows, etc. Um, or, another way of thinking about plans is let's make this an axon and then let's use a clipping plane. Let me just make a clipping plane here. Clipping plane, clipping plane. There we go. I don't know why that was so difficult. And I'll just put this at the 0, 0, 0. Then I'll just simply select it. Let's see here. Where's that clipping plane? Oy, oy, oy. There it is. Okay. And use the gumball and I'll just move it. Now, one of the key things is that now I could have a plan with shadows. I could again go to the section or the clipping plane properties and change things. I could also do that in parallel view and actually have a sort of plan axon if I wanted to. And again, I would just go back to these layers. You can see that they're pretty standard AutoCAD layers now from Revit. And let's see here. Let me just pull this out and we can start to change their section styles, right? So I could say floors and walls, um, pattern color. Let's fill those in with a solid. Let's make that black. The boundary, let's make it a line type by layer. Let's make it a continuous line, round, width scale of 3, etc. Right? And so now we could begin to um, make these things. Oh, sorry, it must be this one. Ugh. Let's see. Pattern, solid, pattern color black. Let's try that. Yeah, so now we can, let's say custom, the line type and the line color, not by object, but just make them all black, right? And start to just hide that really quickly, that clipping plane, and start to actually have axon, um, uh, what would you say? Plans, right? Let's see, this would be black. Let's say fill, black. Okay. Fill, solid, black, black, and okay. What layer are these on that they're not changing? That's really driving me crazy. A wall. Driving me up a wall. Um, oh, they're not being cut through. Okay. Sorry, let me just show that. section plane again here. Let's see here. Visibility. I just hit it, so I'm just going to show it again. And where's that plane? I'll just move it through the walls. Yeah, and then it should everything, right? So you could make a section perspective or section, sorry, a plan axon and right. So you have some options, right? You can play around with it. Particularly now, you have some latitude to sort of play around and try, fail, right? If you came in next week and say, I tried this and it just wasn't working, and my question will be, do you want to try to make it work and I'll help you? Or do you want to pick a different path, right? I mean, it's simply, try some things out, right? Look, you'll never have as much freedom as you do this summer ever in your career again to just simply fail and try new things. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't work, right? Okay. So in that spirit, try some new things and think about, well, what really gets the gears of my brain going, makes my heart tick, right? Like that's the idea here, right? I want you to begin to develop your own aesthetics, your own workflows, right? The things that work for you that you really enjoy doing. I think that's really important. And it's a part of developing your own voice, right? And so again, and then I would also remind you really quickly that this is just a simple default rendered mode. But let's see, I could always, go to again my tools, my views, display modes. Let's do artistic. Was it or technical? I can't remember. What did I usually make a copy of? I think it's technical. But artistic's pretty interesting too. Anyway, if you have your own display modes here, then you can start to really make these things pop the way you want, right? So I think you have more sort of aesthetic options for your drawings with rendering and shadows here in Rhino. But there's certainly nothing wrong with just understanding that workflow in Revit, using it, having very nice technical sort of looking drawing. You could also turn on shadows and shading in Revit with your drawings if you'd like, and try that as well. Um, so let me just show you again, just as a quick reminder here. Let's see, technical oh wait, let me just go to display mode. So I could say technical up here, and I can say copy, and I can say, let's say 711 custom. And there I would turn on the ground. Let's see. So it says show curves, show hidden lines. I'm going to turn off show curves, but show edges, so show silhouettes, shade objects, colors, objects color. I'm going to say rendering material, advanced texture preview, back face settings, use the front face. And I'm just going to go through here now. And particularly when it comes to lines, I'm going to say instead of using objects color, I'm just going to set all the lines that it shows. All the line work is black by default. And then I'm going to start bumping up line weights here and there. So hidden lines, sure, 1. Edge line, let's go with 2. Silhouette line, let's go with 4. Intersection line, let's keep it at 1, something like that. Let's see what that looks like when I give it look really good or really terrible. Okay, so it doesn't really have much pep to it. But anyway, you get the idea, right? So I think I also need to turn on shadows and some other things. I'm just sort of in a rush, but you get the idea. Other settings, shadows on, right? And I can start to see what difference these things make as I go. Um, this doesn't actually look like it's using my white clay stuff. Let's see if I can. Again, as a quick reminder, and again, I don't have this over here. So if I think about render, right? We didn't actually talk about rendering. It might be worth just quickly talking about this, right? When we're talking about rendering these things, we're talking about sort of turning on certain lighting, adding certain material properties, and then positioning the camera. So if you think about the most complex cameras we know, our eyeballs, right? How do we see? First of all, we need light, right? Everything we see and how we see it is based off of how light bounces off an object and returns to our eyes and our photosensors, both two of them, put two views into play to our brain reconciles it into one sort of strange composite, right? And then when you get new glasses, your brain has to readjust. So if you think about this, right, lighting's really important. Materials also, right? So we understand that we see that back wall is red because it's actually absorbing all the colors of the light that's hitting that surface, except for red, and bouncing red back to us, right? All right, so if I go to render, you can see that I have things like under panels, materials, environments, textures, lights, and sun. And then I can also begin to change my camera properties, like how wide angle do I want it, where is it located, et cetera, right? So but if I just want to toggle that materials on, and I just want them to sort of be over here when I need them, I'm just going to go ahead and drag them over there so that they're docked over here as well. Just like we can do the sun and everything else. And hit materials. I'm just going to say plaster and white. Oh, come on now. And I'm just going to say assign to all the objects that I have selected here. Yes, I definitely want to assign it. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if that did anything different here. Ugh. See, my render settings look really crappy. And I have to imagine, let's bring up my render properties here. Transparent background on, ground plane on, lighting and skylight on. Okay, and so I have a little bit of work to do here in order to make this look a little better, but I'll work on that on my end. But anyway, those are some things you can do, right? And again, I'm presenting both platforms, Rhino and Revit, to you guys, so that you can become a little more fluent with understanding what Rhino's good at and what Revit's good at. You can understand how you can become fluent in moving files from one to the other if you need to, without losing the fidelity of the information um, in some cases. And then it allows you maybe to sort of, again, make your own sort of decisions on, like some of you really like Revit and some of you like Rhino and some of you like both. And, again, it's not really like I know what my workflows are, but I want you to develop your own. I want you to sort of be comfortable with what you're doing. And I think that that differs from each individual. You can see that we have a lot of floating things, and so we have some floating shadows here that aren't quite detached, and that's interesting, of course. But anyway, it looks like I need to do some render settings here. But anyway, let's go with new, and let's just see what it could just be some of the settings that are native in Revit. I might need to go back through. Let's see, right? Yeah, because that's what I'm kind of accustomed to with render, right? So for whatever reason, I needed to change some render settings in order to get back to this sort of white clay model if I wanted to use that. Okay. But as you can see, again, there's lots of different ways to sort of think about this stuff. What I think was really interesting, let me go back to, did I just get rid of the one I had open? I guess I did. Oh, damn. And let me just open it back up again, that DWG. Yeah, sure. Okay. Um, one of the other things you might notice is that this whole thing is one big object. I could always try to explode it. And now I have a bunch of different objects, right? Here's that poly surface, here's that poly surface, here's that surface, etc., right? Um, so maybe that actually has something to do with it, but I'm not sure. If anything, maybe I would just make a new layer, just new layer that's pretty generic. Move these over to that new layer and see if that changes some of the rendering weirdness. Let's see, layer one. No, it still isn't. Something about these objects have a different property with like this sort of gray, flat gray shade material. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, something to think about. All right. So again, experiment. And I want to re-emphasize, right? You will never have as much freedom as you do right now to simply try new things and potentially fail at them a couple of times, stumble here and there. And you have me looking over your shoulder to sort of help you out, right? To get you over that learning curve.
This saw. One question there.
Yeah.
You did have the same one. All right. So you brought the file over from Revit, Revit loves all of its measurements and stuff. Sometimes when you're Revit, you can't move something around that you brought in from Rhino, the ceiling's too low or something.
Right.
When you bring over these Revit, deals over here to Rhino, you can leave all that alone. You can make your adjustment.
You could, but if you brought it back into Revit, like the Revit file is now, sort of a relic, like a ghost town, just like it's past, not present.
Yeah, but is it gonna leave all the rooms the same size and thicknesses, but all the same?
Well, all of these are the same.
And then
So
actually make those edits.
I could make, like thicken something up in Rhino or move something around with a gumball, right? It's all stuff in Rhino again.
But all like the room sizes and all the sizes that you were so meticulous about in Revit. They're the same.
They should still be there. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, like all the geometries are there. Glass, mullions, floors, stairs, railings, everything, roofs.
Move something that was in the way without all this grasshopper stuff and then export it back to Revit to work it.
So if you brought this back into Revit, it would be another generic model. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't know like this is a floor and this is a wall again, right? So that's why I'm saying if you do this route, go bring it back into Rhino, it's really just to make some representations, right? Like some drawings and some renderings if you prefer here over there, right?
So it's not to fix anything, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it's just maybe just, you like some of the shaded settings you had or rendered settings you had here. So from here, I could go perspective. 50 millimeters, a little too narrow. I'll go 28 millimeter. I could then begin to export, a perspective out of this. And man, these lighting settings are like oppressive. They're really dark. So anyway, I need to change some settings, of course, again, but I think you get the idea, right? Like so, that's just a preference on your part, right? Again, if I have things in Revit and I like Revit, I could again go to View tab, 3D View, Camera. Yeah, I'll save the project. Sure. Yeah, save. Sure. Whatever. Yes, yes, yes. Um, and maybe I go to, oh, come on, save already. Level 2, and let's see, 3D View, Camera, and maybe place myself right here and then look in that direction and set up a perspective. And do that. And then I can of course always turn on some shadows. Again, it's different, right? This is set to wireframe. Maybe I do shaded or consistent colors. Or let's say maybe I try just simply rendering it out, right? But the rendering in Revit is, again, I would say tries to, here, let me just hit render and see how long it takes. Again, I would say if you want to fight your battles with rendering, then you have to do a lot more in this model and then make it a lot heavier. If you can get something that's usable that you can bring into Photoshop, post-process in Photoshop, right? Like there's no reason I would think to bring in Revit trees, low poly trees and low poly people and stuff like that, try to populate. They look goofy. Whereas here, I would say I would rather just develop my Photoshop skills and start to place people, add some textures, and I don't have to figure everything out, right? It becomes a collage, something I say, well, what am I really trying to communicate here, right? I want to sort of show how this cutout becomes a window not into the space, but of the people walking through the space. So I start to add people up here. I can start to add some people down here. I can whatever, right? This is of course an incomplete model. It looks like it's open air, right? But that's just because that's all I have at the moment. But Um, but again, I would say think about these things. Try now once as a draft so that you understand what do I know and what do I don't not know, or what do I need to practice, right? Because good drawings take a while to develop, right? It's not like you just like you're spending all your time building the model, and at the end there's a magic button you can push, and all the drawings are awesome and just generated for you, right? These will generate drawing information for you, but then taking in the drawings to the next level, really crafting them, making sure the line work weights work, where you add a little bit of light gray tone, right? Making sure that things are really legible and read well, and that it's telling the story you want. That's still not largely automated. That's still something you really have to sort of look at, right? That's where your taste and critical thinking, right, comes into play, right? So the decisions you make, being able to sort of again communicate those visually, right, is really important, and that's one of the things we're trying to really help you develop here, right? As I was mentioning earlier, right, with rendering, but even with modeling, like the sort of skill work I think is going to slowly be less and less of value, right? Knowing how to execute X, Y, Z. It's about making decisions and being able to articulate those to either human intelligence or machine intelligence to then execute and then decide, okay, is this good enough? Or, I have these options, which one's the best one, right? That becomes another human concern. I was telling Jason yesterday, he was asking about rendering. And it's like, I mean, these days, if I really wanted a like, let's say I had this model and I wanted like a really super well produced set of visuals. I mean, I could just like send this model off to a company in India at night, go to sleep, wake up next morning, the visuals will be in my inbox. Maybe I pay $20 per visual or something per perspective, right? Like, I mean, and done, right? Like, I mean, which is relatively cheap, right? So, to me, I think that, yes, it's helpful to know some of these skills, but I think the question is, what are you doing with them is really, really super important, right? So, what's the idea? How is it coming through and being articulated in the drawings, right? Can people read the idea without you being there trying to explain it to them verbally, right? That's the goal with representation, your visual representation, right? It tells a story for you. All right, so getting like some weird artifacts in this, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And that's what I want to sort of demonstrate some of these workflows today, right? Like, I mean, again, this is where, again, you just have to learn how to model and move things around. Now we're starting to think about, okay, how do we cut a section? How do we cut a plan? And then let's talk about the standards, right? Making sure that we're adjusting line weights, that we had poche, that these things are really, really readable. You'll see that some of these things are largely automated. Others, you have to go in and start to get under the hood, fine tune some things, right, with these settings. So I wanted to show you guys how to do that in both Revit and Rhino. And again, acknowledging that you might have to go back and forth or go back to Rhino or stay in Revit, right? But there's ways of doing it, right? And they're not too bad once you get practiced with them. Um, you start to remember them, and you always have these videos that I'm recording to look back on if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording then because I don't think I have anything else to demonstrate.